welcome back to another episode of World of Tanks with Gaiety Titan, and I was going to spend this video talking about the Skoda T50 and my experiences with it and stuff like that, but then I looked at Wargaming's news for September, and they're now starting a new season, or at least they've announced a new season to replace SummerSlam, which is a WWE cross promotion where they've basically been advertising WWE by some of the veteran stars getting their names on tanks, and some tanks with paint jobs and stuff like that. And aside from the fact that you could wonder, like, is there any fresh blood coming into the WWE? It's actually not, I think, not a terribly painful way for Wargaming to make a few bob on the thing. The tanks themselves seem to be in basically variations on regular tanks. I'm not sure if there are actually any technical variations. I haven't really examined them to any great degree. But I have ran into them on the battlefield, the various incarnations. The Andre the Giant actually seemed to be quite popular. And you know, it doesn't seem to be anything special, and at least anything greatly different from the tank that it's derived from, at least on my experience. And now they're doing something similar with Hot Wheels, except now light tanks with funny paint jobs, spy panzers and variants of tanks like that, fast, big guns, light tanks. So I'm guessing it'll be more of the same, and it'll have a similar kind of impact in that case. In that case, I'm not going to be too bothered about it. Not my thing, but if Wargaming's making a few bob and it keeps the lights on, the games, the servers running, and they actually continue to pay for some development of the game, I'm not actually going to complain, especially if it actually pays for some development in the game. I think the game could do with some more development. I actually would like to see them addressing some of the long-standing issues of the game, particularly stuff on balance. Now that they're no longer tied to the Xbox 360, I'd actually like to see experimenting with putting more cover on maps, soft cover in particular, so that light tanks particularly can go back and do the jobs that they were originally designed to do. Not much point in sitting down here in front of an O-ho getting shot at. I might as well try something different. However, to get back to what I was saying, another thing I noticed they're doing is they're doing an experiment with the vision system now. I know today is Saturday. I'm hoping to get the video out today, but I don't think... I haven't had the opportunity to actually play the game. It's out already. I mean, the experimental will be running until Tuesday. But I'm hoping to get a go at it tomorrow, Sunday, to have a good go at it and have a decent look at it. So I'm not sure how much difference it'll make. It seems to me they're essentially increasing in render range to infinity, which might be a bit like the old days. So I don't know if people remember, anybody still watching my channel, were people who were watching back when I started the channel, started playing. But when I started the channel, the rendering area was a box. So you could see, I think, 300 meters or 400 meters in front of you or something like that. But then I can't remember the exact render range. It was 700 meters or something like that. But the diagonals were longer. So if you happen to be orientated in such a way that you were looking at the rendering box diagonally, spotted tanks that were actually outside of the technical rendering range were visible and could be shot at. Much to the complaints actually of people in them. But that was kind of understanding it. There was also other problems with the rendering. There was all sorts of problems with the rendering system. The most famous was basically the appearing and disappearing tanks. Essentially, if you had a gap in buildings, so those tanks were invisible, they weren't spotted, or you had no line of sight to them, so they were not rendered, and they were behind buildings, and then there was, say, a 20-meter gap between two buildings. The tanks might have moved 10 meters before the rendering system made them visible. So you couldn't actually target them. You knew they were there, you could see them on the minimap, but you couldn't target them because there was nothing actually visible until they rendered. And then they'd appear out of the blue like a Klingon bird of prey or a Romulan bird, warbird decloaking. And then they'd vanish again and they'd disappear behind the building. Very annoying. So now they're extending the rendering range. So as far as I can make out, if you can see the tank, or an ally can see the tank, it should be rendered. So the only reason that you wouldn't be able to see the tank is if there was no line of sight between you and it. This makes camping somewhat trickier, because obviously and it actually kind of rewards good light tanking, because if you can push a light tank into forward positions and they're lighting up enemy tanks that were previously outside the render range, a lot of tanks will now be in a position, hopefully, to shoot at them who previously weren't. Now, there are downsides, upsides and downsides potentially to this. It could encourage a more camping style of play, because it could encourage the return of the big gun tank destroyers. So when I started out playing, for instance, a lot of tanks, at least half the tanks on a team would have been stealthy tank destroyers. Things like Rheinmetall Borsigs, Waffenträger, Panzer IVs, Hellcats. Other tanks like that were quite stealthy and had good, accurate guns that could destroy tanks if they hit them at any range. Because obviously the tank's weapon range generally exceeds the view range of the tank, and generally exceeds the rendering range, which is why you can attempt map sniping, mini-map sniping. Some people do it. I've never actually managed to succeed in doing it, but I've certainly seen it attempted. I've seen people succeed on the Xbox, on the PC, where they're shooting tanks that are out of the render range, based on their location on the minimap and their knowledge of the map and where the tank is likely to be. So now, maybe the new thing will allow those sort of tricks. It'll be interesting. Don't know what a short-term test will do. Maybe they'll do more than one test. I know they've been testing again with +1, -1 matchmaking. I'm not against it, especially now that you have a combined player base. There shouldn't be any issues with matchmaking or matchmaking timing, so that the time to start a new battle shouldn't be a problem. I mean, I think there's enough players that generally I have no problem waiting for a game. Certainly not in the European server. I don't know what the situation. Maybe the situation is different in the North American server. I have played a bit in the North American server, and I didn't notice any particularly long waits for matchmaking on the North American server since the crossplay was enabled. That said, I've not tried the North American server when it'd be out of hours in North America. Nor for that matter, recently have I tried the European server when it was out of hours as well. So I don't know what the matchmaking might be like in non-standard time frames. However, to get back to the business of +1, -1 matchmaking, my biggest thing would be that it would probably require tank rebalancing, because there are tanks, for instance, that currently premium matchmaking, because essentially they're fairly weak, especially weak against higher tiers. So they get premium matchmaking, and that's one of their premium tanks. It's one of their kind of selling points. But I think the whole tank balance issue, if you're going to go into +1, -1 matchmaking, then I think the tank balance, a major tank rebalance, would have to be done at the same time. And this would be a pretty big resource intensive effort. I think it would behoove Wargaming to probably do the tank rebalancing before they actually would implement +1 -1 matchmaking as a permanent thing. That said, I would welcome it if they did, especially welcome it if they did do a general tank rebalance. I think it's probably well past time that we had a real look at the tank balance issues, because there's been a lot of drift over the years, and a lot of new tanks have come on that are substantially better performers than some of the older tanks. And there are definitely some older tanks out there that probably needed a little bit of love. Some of them have gotten it, like tanks like the Love and things like that have gotten a bit of love over the time. But I would say, I don't know, I haven't played it in a while now, but it's the Churchill 3, for instance, is a candidate of mine. The IS-6, which was one of my favourite tanks as well, could probably do with a bit of love. Either better, the armour is actually probably alright. Just a bit, maybe more penetration on the shells. A few things like that. So I would like to see, that if Wargaming are, continue to develop the game, that the game is going to grow and evolve, and that the match, becomes a more fun, and it keeps fun and a bit of freshness in the game. So meanwhile, yes, and they're making changes in the maps and others again. Some of the old spawn points are returning. I'm not sure if that's actually a good idea. I noticed I've been on El Aluf a couple of times now, and the original spawn points in the villages on either side have returned to the map. Now, it's mixing up the gameplay, and it's certainly, I suspect very strongly that most of the player base at this stage is newish, is in the sense that the original, this game has not retained players, or not retained an awful lot of players from its release, and that actually experimenting with the spawn points, the style of play, the game, the meta, I would say, has changed considerably over the years, and it's different. People are doing different things on maps now compared to what was going on when I started playing. In fact, when I was started playing, there was a more consistent meta, and it was very similar actually to what was going on in the PC game at the time, because I think a lot of players actually crossed over from, there were PC players that had consoles and started playing World of Tanks, the beta on the console, but it's become its own game, and I'm not sure I've been following the PC game that closely, so I don't know whether the meta, I presume, has changed on the console game as well. It has evolved, and it's probably quite different now to what it was 5 or 6 years ago. So at least they're experimenting with the new maps, but I'd like to say this, I'd like to see them also experimenting more with sort of things like cover, stuff like that. They're actually redesigning them as well, I've noticed. Some of the sight lines in El Aluf don't seem to me to be exactly the same as they were previously, although I'd have to have a few more games to actually be sure of that. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you all again soon. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please press like, comment, share. It really helps the channel out, and if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.